Hi, welcome to Money and Media, presented by FinCon, everybody. My name is Andy Hill, and today we're going to be talking about how we can make more money as a freelance writer. And I'm happy to be joined by professional personal finance writer Ben Luthi. Ben is going to share how he got his start with writing and how he's grown his business over the past few years. Now, I'm going to be throwing some questions at Ben, like normal, but we also have a few questions from the FinCon community that Ben is going to be answering as well. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, Ben, tell us how you got your start with freelance writing.
Yeah, so I started freelancing in 2013. So I graduated from college in 2012, and my ex-wife and I at the time, we moved out to Arkansas to live closer to her family, and I figured I could just get a job out there, and it didn't happen. Spent about 6 months searching for a job, finally got a job as a bank teller. I was miserable. I hated it, and I discovered personal finance blogs, and so I decided to start my own personal finance blog. I loved personal finance. I thought I was a good writer. Wasn't really at the time. But yeah, and then I started seeing that there were a lot of bloggers who were freelancing on the side, kind of building that as an income, and so it just kind of went from there.
Very cool. Well, there's so many different avenues you can choose with personal finance if you're a big fan of that. Why was freelance writing your medium of choice if you said, hey, man, I'm not even sure I'm that great of a writer?
Yeah, well, I I definitely wasn't a great blogger at the time. Blogging requires a lot of different skill sets to build, grow. It's a lot more than just writing. And I saw freelancing as this opportunity to earn money now for my work. With blogging, it's very like a slow build up. And I saw other writers like Holly Johnson, Jason Steele, Eric Rosenberg, who were making money freelancing. And so I wanted to go that path.
So it sounds like for you, it was a monetary need for freelance writing right away.
Yeah, absolutely. I made $10,000 my first year out of college, so it was a pretty immediate need at the time.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about, being a writer, being a paid writer. So when you got your first couple of opportunities, did you start with guest posts, or did you go straight into, hey, how can I make the money right away? How did that work?
Yeah, so I wrote a few guest posts, and that was focused on my blog. So I wrote one for Budgets Are Sexy, Frugal Rules, Club Thrifty, a few other different blogs that was really meant to try to get backlinks to my blog. But my very first gig, actually, they reached out to me. I did a financial planning class in college, and I wrote a couple of articles for this website as an assignment, basically. And they had my email address, so they just reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to write for us for pay? Because they liked what I did. And that happened probably a month or two after I started my blog.
That's cool. So what kind of fees were you getting at that time when you were starting off?
I earned 2 cents a word on that first one, which is horrible. And I would never recommend anybody do that now. But at the time, I was making $9.75 an hour as a bank teller. And so I figured if I could write an article, they were all 500 words. So if I could write a 500-word article in less than an hour, I was earning more per hour than I was at my job. And so that was kind of how I viewed it.
Wow. Yeah. You got to start somewhere, right? So talk to me about how you started to ladder up your fees from there. Obviously, you went from 2 cents to hopefully higher than that. So how did you make your way up?
Yeah. So after that first client, the other two clients that came after, they just naturally offered more. One of them, they found me through my blog. I had written about the Twitter IPO and just about IPOs in general and how people should view them. And they liked that, so they offered me a gig. And then I found another client, my first FinCon, actually, in New Orleans, and they offered even more. And that was just kind of like their starting pay. They were more reasonable for newer writers even. Beyond that, I got a full-time job at NerdWallet. And that was probably the best thing for my freelance career because NerdWallet is well known in the personal finance space. I was a staff writer for a year. I worked directly with consumers for a year with the live chat feature, helping out with credit cards. And so that byline, I think, really helped boost it helped with my skill level, but it also boosted like my authority.
That's incredible. So a couple of questions I have that came out of that. So it sounds like you started to develop a niche eventually. It sounds like maybe you were
Exactly.
writing in different broad perspectives. So what is your niche today? And then I guess how did you come to find it?
Yeah, so I mean, I can write about pretty much anything personal finance related, but I started with credit cards, and that's primarily because I really like credit cards. I learned through other personal finance blogs. I learned about how to how to earn travel rewards, how to take advantage of those benefits that these credit cards offer. And so it just became a personal hobby of mine. And so I just figured, hey, I can make money doing this thing that I already love doing. And that's probably how I got the job at NerdWallet, is because at the time my writing skills still weren't great, but they needed people who knew credit cards, and that's not really something that's easy to teach someone. So yeah, credit cards was my bread and butter for a long time. I still write a lot about credit cards, but now I focus on just about anything personal finance, travel related.
Well, that's great. So travel, credit cards, personal finance, that's niched down enough to make sense and obviously get you a good amount of work. So another thing you said there is that people started to offer more as you were starting to go through the process. It obviously helped with your credentials from NerdWallet. But let me ask you the question: when you're approached, or when you were approached with a new opportunity, did you first ask what their rates are, what they normally pay, or did you offer your rates? Because I know it's like who shows their cards first is like the
Right,
big deal. So
yeah.
how did you walk that dance so we can help other people?
Yeah, that's one of my least favorite parts of the entire process, because I don't think I'm a great negotiator. Some of my clients, and actually one of my first clients, they just told me this is what we pay all of our writers. So I didn't have to worry about going back and forth. But most clients, they will ask what my rates are. Because from their perspective, if they're willing to pay higher rates and I give them a lower rate, then they'll just take me at that rate. And I've actually talked to several freelancers that work for the same clients as me, and we all get paid different rates. I don't like it, but it kind of has given me an opportunity to think about what I think I'm worth, what my work is worth, and what I do now. And I've gotten a lot better at it over the years. But what I do now is I'll have two rates in mind. The first rate is the minimum amount that I'll accept. And then the second rate is what I actually ask for. And that's usually kind of a shoot for the moon type thing. Like this would be my ideal rate. I think the fear that I had for a long time was if I give them too high a rate, then they'll just say no. They'll just laugh at me and move on. And that has happened a couple of times. But the vast majority of times this has happened. And I've worked with probably over 40 different clients at this point. They usually will come back with their rate. They'll counteroffer, because it's a business situation. It's a business conversation, and yeah, so it's been interesting to see how that works. And a lot of times, they accept my first rate, and if they don't, then they'll come back and they'll say, oh, well, this is our budget. We can only afford this, and if that's above my minimum rate, then I accept it. If it's below, then I just say no, thank you. But I know some other writers. I always try to do that, be a resource, because you never know. I actually just had a client reach out that we talked, I think, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And at that time, their rates were too low for me. But now their budget is bigger and they came back because I was willing to be a resource for them.
I think that's an excellent takeaway for a lot of people is to think about those two rates in their brain. That's an easy exercise for a lot of people to do. Thank you for sharing that, Ben. Let's talk about clients. You said you've worked with over 40 clients now. How do you go about finding clients in your work nowadays?
So the nice thing about now is that I don't have to search for clients. I've kind of realized that I've gotten to a point where, once you're starting to write for bigger, more well-known publications and websites, when other companies are looking for work, they'll go to these websites and say, okay, who's writing for these big name websites? And then they reach out to you directly. So I've gotten emails through my freelancer website that I have set up. I've gotten LinkedIn messages. I've had people reach out to me on Facebook. So that's kind of where I'm at now. But in the beginning, right after I left NerdWallet, I just made a list of all of the companies that I would enjoy writing for. At the time, I didn't know how much they paid. I didn't know if they were even looking for freelancers. I just made a list and said, I would love to write for these websites. I like what they're doing. I think that I understand the topics, all that kind of stuff. And then I went looking for their contact information. I'd look for editors on LinkedIn. I'd ask around, see if anybody I knew had email addresses. I did have some editor information from past FinCons that I had attended. But yeah, that's kind of the process that I went through. And there were a couple of times where I just sent it to the main customer service email address. And obviously I got nothing back from those because those people probably don't know what to do with those types of emails. But that's kind of in the beginning, the process that I went through.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, especially as you're trying to feed your client base and try to figure out what your niche is and go from there. So one thing we want to jump to right now, Ben, is to listen to some of these voicemails that were sent in. This
Sure.
first one comes in from Amy Beardsley from Early Morning Money. I'm going to play it for you here, and then we can talk about it afterward.
Hey Ben, it's Amy from Early Morning Money. I have a question for you. How do you handle the feast or famine cycle that is freelance writing? I've been writing full-time for just over a year, and I've yet to find a good balance. I jumped into freelancing before my finances were really ready, so my husband and I still have a fair amount of debt. I get nervous when my workload slows down. Besides the obvious of getting out of debt, is there a better way to manage the ups and downs?
Yeah, so Amy's asking about the ups and downs of freelance writing. Sometimes you get a lot of business and sometimes you don't. She mentioned that she's kind of in a tough financial situation, and how do we navigate that? So I guess it sounds like you went through this quite a bit. You had a tough financial situation when you got in. How do you manage the feast or famine that might come with freelance writing?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I benefited from the fact that I had a full-time job while I started freelancing in earnest. I was working for Student Loan Hero at the time, and I had a very flexible schedule, so I could build my freelance business on the side. And that helped a lot because I still had that full-time job, full-time income. We were living off that income at the time, so the freelance income was all kind of bonus money. Once I became a freelancer full-time, then it was really just I said yes to everything. I don't do that now because it was really taxing. But basically, it was just like I'm going to avoid the famine months by just making sure that every month is a feast month, basically. And I probably took on way more work than I should have. But that was kind of the focus then. And more recently, actually, because I'm trying to find more balance now. I have had a couple of months where my income was a lot less than I anticipated. At that point, basically you just have to decide, it's the middle of the month. I'm going to reach out to my clients again. I'm going to send more pitches. I'm going to do whatever I can to get more work right now. And especially right now, I mean, I don't know what the economy is going to be like over the next few months with this pandemic and figuring out. So I'm in that stage right now where I'm just like, you know what? I just need to start saying yes to everything again. And then on the money side, I decided to, again, with minimums, I have a minimum amount of money that I want to make every month. And then I have a maximum that I'm okay. This is kind of like my goal, but as far as, making sure that my expenses are paid for, this is my minimum. And as long as I am above that minimum, I try not to, I mean, it's still stress, but I try not to stress because I have what I need. And so that kind of helps put things in context where it's like, hey, I'm not making as much money as I want to, but my basic expenses are still taken care of. And then obviously a lot of saving. That's been huge for me. It really helped to have a lot of savings when I branched out to freelance full time. And right now I try to save as much money as possible.
Yeah, especially with what's going on. I mean, this financial crisis has got everybody stressed and not really knowing where to go. So to stress right now is to be human for sure. This next question comes in from Zena Kumak, who's also a freelance writer, and she's going to chime in right now. Here, I'll play it for you.
Hey, Ben. My name is Zena Kumak of zenakumak.com. And my question for you is, how do you know when you're ready to drop a client? Let's say you've been writing for them for a while and they don't pay as well, but you're still nervous about making that leap and getting rid of them. Is this a mindset problem? Is this a financial problem? Would love to get your feedback on this. Thanks.
Excellent. So Zena wants to know, when should I drop a client? So what do you think, Ben?
Yeah, so dropping clients is really anxiety inducing. I feel like I've gotten better at it over the years because I've dropped 20, 30 clients for different reasons. And I I really look at it from two different perspectives. There's the money side of things, and then there's the mental health side of things. From the money side, I typically don't drop a client until I have someone to replace them. And that has happened, as more companies reach out to you or interested, or as you find new companies to write for, if they're going to pay you more than what your lowest paying client is paying, and you don't necessarily want to add more work, then that's a good time to just replace them. From the mental health side of things, there have been a few clients, not many, but there have been a few clients I've dropped because of that. And basically what I look at it from this perspective, how emotionally taxing is this client? Because you do have most of my clients are really easygoing, really fun to work with. But sometimes you got a client who, they send you 5-6 revision requests instead of just one, big edit, things like that. They constantly change what they want out of the article. They start asking for more over time without giving you a pay raise, that kind of stuff. And basically, I just realized that, the emotional energy that I expend with this client is making me less productive and making it a lot harder to work efficiently for my other clients. And so there have been times where I've dumped clients like that without having a replacement. And that is stressful, but it's also really nice to not have that emotional mental burden on you. And it's I did it recently, last month. I did it with a client, and I found 2 new clients this month to replace them. And I was a little stressed for a while, but it worked out, and I feel a lot better.
That's incredible. Yeah, taking that leap can sometimes feel pretty uncomfortable, but it might pay off for your mental health for sure, especially and maybe your wallet down the road too. So, okay, Kevin Payne has a question here for us. Let's listen to Kevin.
Hi, Ben. This is Kevin at Family Money Adventure. How do you maximize your writing time during the week? Are you outsourcing any part of your writing or research? And if so, what types of things are you outsourcing? And was there a particular process or resource that you use to find help for your writing and research?
Excellent. Well, let's break that down because he asked a few questions there. Let's start with this first question. How do you maximize your writing time during the week? Let's talk a little bit about that.
The first thing I do is I know when I'm more productive. So I've realized that I'm not very productive at night. Even though I've been working from home for 5 years, even though I've been freelancing for almost 2 years full time, I don't like writing at night. And so I tend to avoid those times. I also don't like writing early morning, because when I was freelancing part-time, working full-time, I was getting up at 5 a.m. every morning, and I just hated it. And so basically late morning, early afternoon is kind of my sweet spot. So I decided, that's my writing time. I also use now an app called Toggle. It's Toggl. Miranda Marquardt recommended it actually to help me track how much time I'm spending on each article. And the purpose for me was, what's my hourly rate for this article? Like, hey, this article pays $600. This article pays $200. But if the $600 article's taken me 3 hours, the $200 article's taken me half an hour, then I've actually got a much higher hourly rate on the $200 article. And so I started tracking that. I started doing that. And I've noticed that once I start tracking, it's a lot easier to stay focused rather than going to Facebook, going to Twitter, playing games on my phone, because I want to maximize my hourly rate for that article. So those are kind of the things that I focus on to be more efficient.
That's cool. And his follow-up question was, do you do anything to outsource any of your writing or research in order to get things done? And if you do, what type of resources are you using?
Yeah, so I outsource my fact-checking. So fact-checking is extremely important, especially in personal finance, because there's a lot of compliance that you have to keep track of, especially with credit cards. But I absolutely hate it. It's so tedious. It's challenging for me. And I noticed that in some cases, it was taking me as long to fact-check an article as it did to write an article. And so I figured, if I can hire a virtual assistant to do this, that can help me increase my hourly rate. And so I do that with some of my clients, not all of them, but I do it with some of my clients, and basically just provided her with a step-by-step of, this is how I do it. These are the okay websites to use. When I send something, I kind of give her some guidance on where we need to look, all that kind of stuff, and it's great. It works really well. And I actually found her through the FinCon group, so it's a great resource. Other than that, I guess I outsource my calls. So when I do phone interviews with sources, I record those, and then I use a transcription service, and basically they just use an algorithm and spits out the transcription. It's not perfect, so I have to go in and kind of make corrections. But I really don't like taking notes while I'm interviewing people, just because I'd rather listen to them and know how to respond. And so I guess that's technically outsourcing. Just a source I use, it's called Trent. But yeah, those are the only two things I outsource right now. I've never outsourced anything else.
Well, that's great. Well, I think this has been very helpful for the people that have called in with their voicemails. Thank you very much for sharing that information. Yeah. I just had a couple questions before we go. You've built your business from that 2 cents an article all the way up to where you are now, and I'm glad to hear that you are so busy with your schedule that you have to decide what you want to work on. That's a good place to be in. So what kind of goals do you have going forward for your business, and where do you see things changing over the next couple of years?
Yeah, for me right now, for the freelancing, it's all about maintaining balance. Because for the last year and a half, as I was building my business, I didn't have any balance. It was all just focus on building. And now I want to take advantage of the freedom that I have. And so right now I have an income goal every month where it's like as soon as I reach this goal, I start rejecting work, or I'll tell them, the rest of my month is booked up. Can we push this to the following month? And in fact, most of my clients will do that for me. And so that's the goal with the freelance business. I'm also looking just to diversify. I've started a travel blog that I'm kind of working on right now. Also a freelance writer academy to establish some courses with some of my colleagues, business partners, to help other people learn how to freelance and make money doing that.
Excellent. Very cool. Well, I want to learn a little bit more about that Freelance Writing Academy at the end. One question we had before we go, somebody's listening right now and they're hearing your story of coming from where you did to where you are now. What is the best step for them to figure out how they can increase their rates? Somebody who's writing right now and maybe not making that much, but they want to increase their rates. What's the best first step that they could take?
I'd say the best first step is to do whatever it takes to be worth those rates. There have been some clients that I've asked for rate increases from. There have been new clients that have taken that I've asked for more money than I was getting paid for older clients. And really, before you ask, you have to make sure that you can make a case for yourself. There was it was about 6 months ago, one of my clients, I started the email basically just said, hey, I've loved working with you guys for the last month or year and a half. I feel like I provide, a lot of value, as what you've asked for has increased. And I would like to ask for a pay raise. And they responded and they said yes, because they knew that, the stuff that I write doesn't require a lot of edits. There were very few times where they request revisions from me, very clean copy, so to speak. There aren't a lot of really good credit card experts out there. And so I'd already made a case for myself with my work. And so just made it a lot more natural. And so I'd say that's the first step. Obviously ask is really important. And I've noticed that if you ask for a raise, they're not going to hate you. They're not going to think you're greedy or whatever. It's a business conversation, and I think clients expect it. You just have to make sure that you can back up your request with your work. You have to provide them with more value than what they're paying you now.
That's a great message, everybody. Make sure your quality is up, and then, you deserve the raise. That's right. Very cool. So, Ben, tell us a little bit more about this Freelancer Writing Academy, and then where people can get in touch with you if they want to chat.
Yeah, so working on Freelance Writer Academy with my friends Miranda Marquit and Kat Trotina. We all work together at Student Loan Hero. We're all six-figure freelancers now, and we just want to provide people with kind of the tools and resources that we wish we had when we were building our business, and kind of help people get to that point faster. So we've got beginner, intermediate, advanced courses. We're going to have a lot of resources. We're going to do, a Facebook group, Q&As, webinars with, tax experts, business experts, all sorts of people. And that we are working on right now. It's going to be out later this year. Hard to know exactly when with everything that's going on right now, but we're working through those things right now. And freelancewriteracademy.com is where you can go and join the waitlist. We also just added a resource for people who are looking for freelance writer jobs right now. With everything that's happening, we want to make sure. So if you go to the website, freelancewriteracademy.com, the top right, we've got that on.
Excellent, Ben. Thank you for jumping in today, sharing that resource with us. Yeah, if you guys want to learn how to grow your freelance writing income, that sounds like a really great resource to check out, freelancewriteracademy.com. Ben, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.